I had a huge acne flare-up, so I didn't want to put on foundation and concealer and all that. But now I'm just kind of like embarrassed that I have these acne scabs. Can you not? Oh gosh. Hi everyone, my name's Jamie. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing a Dollar Tree book review and we are going over Star-Crossed by Pintip Dunn. I'm very conflicted about this book because there are parts of it that I really, really liked and there are parts of it that I really, really hated. I don't know if the parts that I really, really liked outweigh the parts that I really, really hate. What I can tell is that this is an indie published book and that Pintip Dunn went to like Harvard and Yale Law School. What, like it's hard? And she's written a few other books, a couple standalones and a series. And so this is not her first book, and she's won a couple awards, like the Rita Award for Best First Novel and Best Romance. I believe both of those are in the YA category. I mean, just look at this cover and the name Star-Crossed. It looks like just a sci-fi YA romance. And that's what it's marketed as. The back of it is just an excerpt from the story, and it's only like a romantic moment. That's just it. It's just an interaction between the main character and her love interest. So at Dollar Tree, I don't even think I fully read the summary. So when I opened the book and actually started reading, I was very, very taken aback. I wouldn't call this a romance, or maybe it's just it wasn't a very strong romance. I feel like the romance was the weakest part of this book for me. All right, so in the world of this book, humans have left Earth and they sent out like 10,000 terraforming bots or pods or whatever in order to make this planet Dion habitable for humans. But when they woke up from cryosleep, they found out that only a couple hundred bots were able to terraform, and so they have a very, very small habitable section of the planet, which means their food resources were very, very scarce. And so instead of letting people starve, they came up with this way for people to get a genetic modification and have them be able to eat as much food as they can and extract the nutrients out of them to make these little pills. And those pills are able to feed everyone else. And that all happened before the start of the book, like decades before the start of the book. We start the book with the main character, Princess Vila. She is the daughter of the king, and she is an Aegis, which is the genetic modification. Now, because of the incredible strain on the body it takes to like extract the nutrients, they only live about 30 years, while a normal lifespan is 90 years. So 2/3 of their lives is taken from them. And it is seen in their culture not only as like a necessity, but like an honor to do that. It is honorable to sacrifice your body and your life in order to help other people. And I thought that was such an incredible theme throughout the book. It is kind of throughout the book, so I'll give the book that. It is an incredible theme. I wish we had more discussion on it, on if that was good or not. What does the author have to say on that idea? Is it sustainable to always sacrifice yourself for other people? We didn't really get an answer to that, but it did give me a question that I wanted to think about. So on this planet, only the Aegis are able to eat actual food, and they eat as much as they can. Everybody else eats these little tasteless pills, and these pills have actually become the currency for this world. And it was almost grotesque in the beginning of the book because you had all of these descriptions of delicious foods like creamy garlic potatoes and raspberry tarts and candied bee larvae and things like that. And it all sounded so good. But then it would be juxtaposed with these descriptions of like people not being able to eat. Like it's illegal for them to eat and they've never tasted food before. And it was so foreign as a concept because as humans, our main like thing is eating. As any animal, all animals eat. Everything eats. So it was just very weird that all of these people weren't allowed to eat. And I just, it was like hard to wrap my head around, but in a good way. It was such an interesting concept. And there are like details about the terraforming and the planet's system that that are so thoroughly thought out. So because the world isn't fully terraformed, they don't have livestock. They only have fish and insects and I think birds. And so it wasn't revealed that they didn't have livestock until like a few chapters in, more than a few chapters in. But then when they did reveal that, I thought back and I was like, oh yeah, she has not once mentioned a food with meat in it. And she has on multiple occasions mentioned like a soy milk or tofu or something made with soy. And I was like, wow, that would make, because it would make sense. And it was just a little detail that was so thought out. And I really liked it. I really, really liked it. Princess Vila is an Aigis. She has a best friend who is not. But when they were younger, she would sneak her best friend little bites of food. Usually it'd be like a cookie or a treat or whatever. So she would sneak her friend little bites of food. And then her friend started getting sick. No matter how many pills she ate, even with Vila, sneaking her some extra nutrition pills, she was not getting better. She was just getting sicker and sicker. And the only time she seems to be getting better is when Vila sneaks her like another bite of food, which is illegal. It's illegal for Vila to do that. Vila is also in a competition with her sister Blanca to become the best successor, to be the best Aigis, and take over their father's reign, basically. Astana has a brother named Kar, and Vila has a huge crush on Kar. She likes Kar, and she also likes this mysterious guy who she's never met, but he saved her from drowning in a stream, pond, something like that, and he never cashed in on his, like, death debt is what they call it, but his, like, wish for saving her life. And she doesn't know this man, or this boy. She doesn't know this boy, and so she likes Kar, but she also likes this mysterious guy who saved her. So Astana, it keeps getting sicker, and the only time she looks better is when she eats real food. And so Vila thinks, oh, maybe it's the food. Maybe because I fed her food, she can no longer get nutrition from the pills. And so Vila tries to give her like a whole meal and gets caught and sent to prison, basically. And because she's sent to prison, she reveals that she's been stealing food for her friend and that this is like a huge problem. And her friend might be sick now because of this. Literally sending her to the prison has no consequences because she gets out of the prison and they're like, whatever. Like, you broke one of our biggest laws, but whatever. And that just kind of, is a segue for her father to set up the main conflict of the story. He wants Vila to be his successor, but the entire council and the, computer system that they have do not want Vila. They think it's very even between her and her sister, what would have the best outcome, but the council prefers her sister and her dad prefers her. They've set up a task for each of them to challenge their decision making, and it's the thing that they are weakest in. So Vila's task is to be in charge of the fittest tournament, I think is what they call it. The fittest tournament, because Aigis only live 30 years, and because the king is an Aigis, in order to keep him alive for as long as possible, they find a young person who is as fit as possible, the fittest person, to take their organs and transplant it into the king to elongate his life unnaturally. And they have been doing this for 90 years. They have done this for so long. And like I said, it is seen as honorable to do this, and so nobody really questions it. For the person who's chosen, their family gets all of the benefits of being an Aigis except the gen mod. So they just get to eat food all day and be kind of rich without having to shorten their life and make the nutrition pills. They just get to eat in luxury. And nobody bats an eye at this. Everyone's like, yeah, that's just, we do this to support our king. He's a wonderful king. We love him. Vila is very uncomfortable with this. She's like the only one that's like, we should do more to, honor their memory and all of that. And so she is put in charge of the fittest trials, meaning she's going to have to pick somebody to die for her father in order to become the successor. During the conversation, she's like, well, then I don't want to be successor. Like, give it to Blanca. I don't care. But they blackmail her into doing this task because every day that she does this for them, they will give her friend, Istana, who's dying, real food. So she begins the trial, and she's so good and so kind-hearted and so different from the society that the first thing she does is like make sure that nobody who doesn't want to be here is here, because it's like a mandatory like gathering. And so she's like, this is completely voluntary. If you do not want to be here, if you don't want to give your life to my dad, don't be here. And then she's like, also, if your main goal is money, I will pay your like rent or whatever for a year or something. And so everybody who was there just to like keep their families safe or housed leave too. And so then it's just a very small pool of people who are actually willing to die for her father. And in that crowd is Carr, her best friend's brother, who she has a crush on. No. And she's like, what? Why do you want to be here? And then she remembers that if Carr is chosen, then Astana, her best friend, will have food for the rest of her life without having to like have the gen modificate, like legally have food for the rest of her life. And she's like, well, no, we'll find another way. We'll get Astana to like, we'll do something. When I'm successor, we'll figure something out. And then Carr's like, no, I have a death debt against you, or for you. And it's revealed that Carr is the guy who saved her from drowning, and so he cashes in his death debt and is like, at least give me a fair chance at the trial. Like, I think I'm the fittest. I'm willing to give my life for your dad and my sister. It's so convoluted. It's so, like, so many of the reasons are so flimsy. I had to, like, actually list it out exactly what people's motivations were. Astana is sick, and that is the main conflict, is that she needs to eat food. Carr was to sacrifice himself so that Astana will have the benefit of eating food. But if Vila is a successor, she could make an amendment. She could make an addendum. She could make an amendment to the law to let certain people, for other reasons, for wider reasons, have food. And then Carr wouldn't have to die, and Astana would still survive. It was weird reasons. We later find out that this is a wider problem. It's not just Astana who's sick. It's people who have like a certain gene or whatever who become sick after they've eaten food and then can no longer take nutrients from pills. And that is her sister's task, is trying to figure out how to care for these people, because if they just give everyone food, then more and more people are going to basically take advantage of this handicap like this social security. Like, that's kind of what it is. I didn't think about that until just now. There's so much, and I haven't even gotten to the complaining part where like I actually break down why I didn't like this book. Anyway, the fitness trials happen, and Vila is conflicted because she wants to save Astana, but she also wants to save Car, and you basically can't have one without the other. She needs to pick somebody to die in order to keep her father alive, and she's in competition with her sister Blanca, and Blanca is mean and isn't supporting her, and there's a lot of problems. Before I get to the ending, let me explain some of the reasons, even in the beginning, I didn't like this book. The concept was so cool, so interesting. It is so dystopian, and it has the bones of a dystopian novel, but nobody actually critiques the system yet. People just accept that somebody has to die in order for one person to elongate his life unnaturally. Nobody critiques the food scarcity. There's one person at the beginning who is like, the king only wants to keep the food for himself, and that's why we continue the system even though there seems to be plenty of food. And nobody critiques the system until the very end, and I'll get to that. But it's so dystopian, and it's so weird to have all of these people just be like, yep, it's fine. We're not going to try and solve this problem. We're just going to keep things the way they are. Yeah, and I know in dystopias, that is kind of the point, is that at the beginning of it, like, people, there's a broken system, but people can't fix it or don't want to, or don't think that the system is broken. But in most dystopias, either the main character has always critiqued it or starts to critique it very early on. Nobody critiques the system until the last couple of pages. Honestly, nobody thinks, hey, this system is broken. Throughout the book, Vila is conflicted about picking somebody to die. She doesn't want to do it, and she thinks it's unfair, but she's like, this is just the way we have to do it. This is my task, this is what we have to do, and this is what we've always done, so we will continue to do it. At least for now. Even, she's always been like, once I'm successor, I'm not going to let people do that. But it seems, it's just a bit weird. It's a bit weird. The structure of the book. The writing style and descriptions are so cool, but the way the book is structured seemed a little weird. There would be so many mysteries set up and then immediately revealed. So we had the setup, but the payoff was too early. For example, Vila's mother passed away. We get that her mother passed away in chapter whatever. Basically the next chapter or a chapter or two later, we get Vila saying that she feels guilty for her mother's death. And I was like, oh, wow, this is something that she will grapple with. It's something that she's kept near and dear to her heart. Deep-seated secret and guilt that she feels that she can't even say, right? That's how a lot of books deal with this kind of guilty, feeling responsible for somebody's death kind of thing, right? Turn the page. Her sister is saying, it's not your fault mom died, and she describes the way her mom died, or the way people think her mom died. Not even a paragraph later, Vila's like, no, but it is my fault, because it wasn't just that I fell asleep outside and got lost. It's because I was hiding from mom, and that made her rush outside, and her death happened. So you set that up, and then it was immediately revealed. And if it was just that, I'd be like, whatever. But it's almost everything that happens. Vila's cousin Denver comes to visit, and you see him talking to Astana in the medical wing, and immediately I was like, he and Astana are a thing, obviously. Like, he like whispers something in her ear, and it's like, obviously they're a thing, right? Not even a chapter later, it's revealed. It's like in the same chapter, they're like, oh, Astana loves Denver. Also, everyone has like names of cities from Earth, and you've got some pretty ones like Astana, and even Denver, I think, is a really cool name for a character. But then you also have like Jacksonville. There was somebody named Jacksonville. Another thing that really bugged me is that it's mentioned multiple times that on this planet, having a voluptuous figure, curvy figure, was seen as the beauty standard. And I was like, oh, cool. I mean, that makes total sense. If you have the ability to like gain weight in a area where food is so scarce, that, of course, that would show your wealth, your status, and be seen as beautiful. I like that idea. Except it's only in theory, because the only character that is called beautiful throughout the book is Vila's older sister, and she is slender. And they say that multiple times. She's beautiful despite being slender. She's beautiful even without the curves that most people would like. And so in practice, Blanca is the beauty standard, even though it is told to us that being curvy is beautiful. They have one speaking character who is described as curvy, and that is Miss Sydney, which she's kind of unlikable. I don't know if they actually say if Vila is slender or not, but they definitely don't say that she is curvy in comparison to her sister. The only other girl character that's important is Astana, who's deathly ill and has been basically starving, so she's skin and bones. And then all of the male characters are described as muscular, lean, muscular, six-pack, broad shoulders. So it's only beautiful in theory for women to be voluptuous and curvy, but men still have to be muscular. A curvy man isn't seen as the beauty standard. That's weird. That's wrong. I didn't like that. I really didn't like that. If you're going to go out of your way to say that being curvy is the beauty standard, make the beautiful character curvy. Make the one person that is called beautiful throughout the entire book curvy. Why wouldn't you? It seemed wrong to me. So Kara is the front runner for the fitness trials, and Vila is trying to like kind of stack the odds against him, and she finds a man named Zelo, or a boy named Zelo, who seems to be the perfect candidate to die for her father. He has no family, no relations, and he says that it's like the will of God for him to die and sacrifice himself for the king. And so she's like, oh, this is perfect. He wants to die. He believes it's the will of his God. He doesn't have anybody who will mourn him. This will be the perfect guy, except he kind of sucks at the trials, at least the first one, right? Vila is trying to get him to win and keep Car from winning, and she even kind of cheats, right? And then they realize that the trials have been sabotaged. Certain things of it have been changed in order for like harm to come to the people. As soon as they start talking about the saboteur, I was like, it's Denver. It's got to be Denver. And I even wrote like a suspect list. I was like, for suspect number 1, Denver. Motive unknown. And then I was like, Blanca would be my next pick because she was in competition with Vila. And I literally wrote that if it's anyone else, it's fucking stupid. Like, it would just be coming out of nowhere, a person doing this for no reason. Car is actually disqualified from the trials, and it's down between Zelo and a guy named Jupiter, who's been doing really well, and they have the like computer basically pick between the two of them, and then they open up the results, and it's actually Car's been picked. And so he has about like 2 months before the transplant happens, and Vila has to like figure out how to save him in those 2 months. And she finds out that the saboteur messed with the computer system and the files, right? And so she thinks for a second it's Zelo because his file is the only one that wasn't put into the computer system, but that's literally just a red herring. The saboteur was Denver. Obviously it was Denver. I do actually like the things that they added to kind of give hints. First of all, he's a florist, and so he made this like new variety of azalea, and he just kept having them all over the place. He had like azaleas in the medic rooms, and he had them planted out in the gardens and stuff, and I was like, oh, that's really pretty. He's got his little azaleas, right? And then it turns out azaleas are poisonous. Like every part of the plant is poisonous, and I was like, I didn't know that. That's so cool that they're poisonous, and that bees who make honey from azaleas, the honey will be poisonous. And I didn't know that either. I didn't know that the honey would be poisonous if made from poisonous plants. I forgot to mention, the saboteur poisoned the king, and it didn't kill him, but it made his health decline so much that the transplant was moved up to like a week later. And then Astana dies. I have to give props to the author. So many authors are afraid to actually kill main characters. And so the fact that she actually killed Astana and it wasn't a fake out death, I liked that. I didn't like that Astana died, but I liked that she had the guts to kill off a character, especially one that was the reason for the whole conflict in the first place. So I was like, perfect. Astana dying. It seemed a little dumb that she died, but the fact that she did die meant that Carr was safe. He didn't have to give his life to the king in order to save Astana. She was already dead. But then Carr's like, it's still like honorable for me. I'm not gonna back down because I only have my integrity, and people only love me if I can give things to them, which has been a whole thing throughout his character arc. And I was like, that's cool. I like that he has that decision still. And so he decides to still go through with it. And then they catch Denver. So they're literally like beginning the operation. And Vila is saying her goodbyes to Carr, and she's like, I love you. I'll always love you. I understand why you're doing this. I don't want you to be doing this, but like I understand because your integrity is all you have, and you're an honorable man. Like you're like too good to actually do this, right? And then she goes to her father, and she's like, I love you. And then she's like, it like hits her that the system is broken and that this is wrong for her to be doing. And so she's talking to her dad, and she's like, is this the right decision? And he's like, I can't make that for you, but I think you'd make the right decision. She stops the operation from happening, and her dad dies. Her dad dies, which again, props to the author for actually killing off a character and for making the main character have to do this. That was a very emotional moment for her. I really liked that. I do think it was a bit dumb that it happened literally in the last like 5 chapters, and that was the defining decision for the council to crown her successor. Like, that was the right decision for her to make. She made that decision, and the council was like, yep, that's what we were waiting for you to realize that the system was broken, and that your dad didn't need to have his life extended, and that you wouldn't give up a loved one to save somebody, and this and that, and so you're the successor, and we're gonna fix the system. And the only reason we had the system was because our colony was new and we needed a stable ruler, but now we can make changes. What? There are some other things that I wanted to talk about that I didn't like. So Astana as a character, she was a non-character. We are told that she and Vila have been best friends forever, and that Vila cares for her so very deeply. And we get like one interaction with her in the very beginning, and then she goes to the medic ward, and then for like half the book we don't talk to her. And she is the reason for the conflict, the reason Vila wants to keep her alive, which is why she has to pick somebody to die, and the reason Carr wants to keep her alive, which is why he has chosen to sacrifice himself, and Vila's conflicted because she doesn't want either of them to die. And I'm like, kill her! Kill her! Fucking kill her! She did not matter to me as a reader because I didn't know her as a character. I was told she was a great person. I saw a couple interactions with her and Vila. Later in the book, you see a few more and she actually becomes more of a character. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like, she's an actual definitive person to me now. But in the beginning, I was like, if you're choosing between a person who I've never seen you interact with, or I've seen you interact with once, versus the man that you're fully in love with and want to spend the rest of your life with, like, fucking kill her. I don't care about her as a character. Like, as a reader, no interest in her whatsoever. That brings me to Carr and his relationship with her. So I wouldn't call this insta-love because she had a crush on Carr for a really long time. So there's just like an implied history. I didn't like it. I didn't like the relationship. It just kind of happened. What I like about romances is seeing the people fall in love and having reasons to be in love with each other. What we get in here is that these are two people who are already in love and just can't be together. And it wasn't enjoyable for me. I guess that is a thing you don't see as often. But the reasons they couldn't be together were dumb. And so it was just like, you guys are making things harder for yourself. To me, the romance scenes were kind of cringy. There was one scene where, because she's so used to eating food at certain times, her stomach grumbles when she doesn't eat food. Like regularly grumbles, and it happens like when she's talking to Asana and Carr, and Asana's like, oh, it's silly, ha ha ha, your stomach's grumbling, and then she tells Carr that he has to listen to Vila's stomach grumble because it's weird. I guess their stomachs don't grumble because they're pill eaters, right? And so he kneels in front of her and puts his ear against her stomach to listen to it grumble, and she's like, this is so romantic. It made me so uncomfortable. Because the colonists don't eat, like, there's a custom that they have that shows their devotion to each other, and it's eating somebody's tears. And so there's like right before Carr dies, like the week leading up to his death, he sneaks Vila out to a cave, like a romantic location. They have like this beautiful scenery, and he's telling her about this custom, and she's crying because he's about to die, right? So she's crying, and he like takes a tear and eats it. He eats her tear, and he's like, it shows my devotion to you. And then he like sheds a single tear, and she gets it and she eats it, and it made me so uncomfortable. I couldn't read it. Like the romantic where it's just kissing, that stuff, I was like, oh, it's like cheesy and cute, but it's okay. It was written well. And then there were things like that, and I was like, this makes me viscerally, like, my skin is crawling thinking about it. I don't even think, like, I skimmed that line because I couldn't read it, and I don't even feel like I processed it until just now, and that's why I feel so viscerally, like, ugh. It was just so weird. Another thing is, like, instead of kissing somebody's hand to, like, be polite, another show of devotion for, like, a mentor figure is to lick their hand. And the thing is, these customs make sense for their society. Hi. Because, like, eating and food-related things are so scarce that it makes sense for, like, licking and eating a tear and hearing somebody's stomach grumble are, like, important to them. But I don't like it. I don't like it. That's all I gotta say, is it felt uncomfortable. And if this was just a sci-fi, if this was an adult sci-fi, I'd be like, yeah, make me uncomfortable. If this was a sci-fi dystopian, I'd be like, yes, I'd be here for it. I'd be like, this is uncomfortable and it's supposed to be uncomfortable, but this is a romance. This is a YA romance. That's what she writes. That's what her other books are romances. I feel like this book, I looked up her website, and I think this book was categorized specifically as YA romance, and so those scenes are supposed to be romantic, not uncomfortable, and that is what weirds me out. I went on a little rant. Sorry, I didn't realize that it made me so uncomfortable. Hello! There were some things, like the setups and payoffs being so close together, like within the same chapter, that made this feel amateur, and not amateur as if it was written for younger audience, but amateur as if this was the author's first novel, and it's not. She's written several award-winning novels. I guess awards, especially for like Goodreads and stuff, they're more popularity based. They're award-winning novels, and yet it feels like she falls into some very first-time writer traps. I think the concept was so cool. And she made the book have so many details that just made the society so foreign and interesting and consistent. I think if this book had dealt more into dystopian and commentary on that society, this book would, I think her talents are being wasted trying to write YA romance when she should be writing uncomfortable dystopians. Obviously, she wants to write romance. She's gonna write romance, whatever. Maybe I shouldn't say talents are wasted, but I think she would do well to write adult dystopian rather than YA romance. I said that the romance was like the weakest part. Vila's relationship with her sister was so interesting, and the descriptions between it was kind of a basic, we used to be close but now we're always in competition and she's kind of mean to me. Like, that's a well-worn trope, but it was, the way she described it was so interesting. There was a moment where she confronts her sister about something, and she talks about how she can tell when her sister builds up a wall, and she says like she can see the bricks that her sister is laying between them, and I loved that. That was so interesting, and I loved every interaction with Vila and her sister, and I thought, scrap the romance, make this a dystopian, and focus on the relationship between the Vila and her sister and their different morals and values that they hold dear. Vila obviously talking emotionally and about integrity, honesty, and love, and Blanca about statistics and what would be best for the greater good and not about individual people's feelings. And that would be such an interesting concept and book, and I would love that way more. Unfortunately, that's not what this book was. I just wish it was that. I did find out that the book's original title was Fit to Die. I love that way more than Star-Crossed. I feel like Star-Crossed makes it seem more romantic than it was, and I guess the author is under the impression that this is a romance book. I didn't find it romantic, but I rated this book 3 stars. I would say for $1.25, it was okay. It was great. I wouldn't spend $18. I wouldn't even say this book is worth like $1.25. Like, it's so bad it's only worth $1. I think it's worth like $5 or $6, maybe even $10. It's a small amount to pay to kind of be introduced to the concept and the good things of this book. Unfortunately, the book wasn't completely enjoyable for me, so I would say it's okay to spend $1.25 on this. My lipstick is on. Oh, gosh. This lipstick was also $1.25. It's too pale for me, I know. That was my review of Star-Crossed by Pintip Dunn. If you liked this video, check out some of my other Dollar Tree reviews. Check out my other videos, I guess. Like, comment, subscribe, all that. And I'll see you in the next one. Maybe? Okay, bye! Oh my gosh. It hurts from smiling so much.